Boom. Yo, MC Starman here, Martin Comtois with my friend Alan Churchill.
Yep.
I like to call him AC Starman, but I don't know, he hasn't bought into it
I
yet.
haven't bought into it, no.
How you been, man?
Pretty good, yeah. Hectic times, running around like crazy.
That Mars-Uranus conjunction, huh? That was like something else, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Saw a lot of, well, I'm in the business of riding mountain bikes, but I saw a particularly higher increase of accidents than usual throughout these last, few weeks.
You were saying about that you everywhere you go, there's accidents, huh?
Yeah, been caught in traffic jams everywhere and accidents on the highway and accidents on mountain bikes, lots of people hurting themselves. So that Mars Uranus is can be seen.
Doing its thing.
Yeah.
So today we're coming together to do a video on the Mars ingress into Gemini. That happens on August 20th, 2022 at 12:56 a.m. Pacific Standard Times. And so that's going to be very interesting to witness for a few reasons. One, um, Mars is going to be in Gemini for 7 months because of retrogression. So we're going to really get to talk about this one in detail. So what does that feel to you, Mars in Gemini versus what we've been going through with Mars in Taurus?
Yeah, the Gemini being an air sign, Taurus being the Earth, it seems that the air or oxygen could lend a little bit more oomph to the fire or the flame of Mars. So there might be a little bit of or it feels like it might be more explosive energy.
Well, Mars in Taurus is very deliberate, right? It's the warrior in the sign of the bull, so it's like you don't really want to confront Mars, and it's really willful, slow moving, the bull, very methodical, very intense, and so Mars in Earth sign tends to be very earthy about its aggression. Now, when
like
deliberate, Taurian,
planned,
fixed, plan, deliberate, but then it went to a conjunction with Uranus, which is flighty too. So we have Mars, Uranus in conjunction with the North nodes in Taurus, so that was quite the experience.
Yeah, some unexpected sort of shifts, right, with that Mars energy.
Exactly. So then what we're going to get now is a Mars Gemini energy. So what is that like? Mars and Gemini. So Mars is the ruler of Scorpio and Aries, the ram and Scorpio, and you got the torch and the sword, and he's the warrior god. In Jung's work, in his alchemical work, Jung talks about Mars being responsible for individuation, the quest for getting to know, to be who I am more fully, So Mars is the first planet after the sun. So you got the glyph of Mars here with the arrow. So that's the sun with the arrow. So Mars is the first planet that is not that comes after the moon and the earth, right? And so it's about going out into the world and expressing myself and developing myself and becoming all that I am. It's also the warrior archetype, the hero archetype, exemplified by Aries. Of course, Mars in Scorpio has a very different watery type of anger, huh? That's really quite devouring. And then Mars in Gemini. So how do you see the myth of Gemini yourself?
So yeah, so a little bit of research I was doing, studying is like the twins. And the twins, they need each other. They support one another, but they have conflict, right? So then that conflict between the twins helps you grow. It's also about it's information. So it's about observation and observing the other and what you can learn in that reflection. So like a mirror doesn't judge, the mirror just shows you the reflection. So I feel that's like a Gemini. It's information, and when you look in the mirror, you see what you see, but then, you know, beyond Gemini is the judging side of it, but just looking in the mirror is Gemini. So that kind of like, you know, gathering the information, what you see in the world, but also like when you gather information, you can also refer it to gathering, like breathing in and out. It's kind of like it's like what's coming in and what's leaving. So knowledge and breathing, and sort of that whole, that realm of sort of information. What are we observing? What are we curious about?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. What's interesting about this picture that we put up is that you know, Mercury rules two signs. It rules Virgo and it rules Gemini. And here we have the twin. Again, the twin, it's ambivalent about sexuality. They're twins, but there's the masculine and the feminine. And here we have the sickle of Virgo, the medicine keeper, and the lyra, also associated with Mercury. The lyra was given to Mercury by Zeus. Jupiter is older brother, the king of the gods. So Mercury is the younger brother of the king of the gods. And in the sign of Gemini, it's associated with the conflict of opposites, you know, between the party and the medicine person, or between the dark side and the light side, between the feminine and the masculine. So with Mars in Gemini, what are some of the things that you know about Mars in Gemini, and what would that represent?
Or just to add on to what you were saying about the duality there, the twins, Castor and Pollux, which is the myth of those, one is mortal and one is immortal as well. So there's this underworld and this this realm of the gods. And so a little bit of trivia I found out is, do you remember the Hunger Games movie?
Yes, of course.
So Castor and Pollux are two characters in the Hunger Games as well.
Oh.
And one of them was sent to the sort of the city where the battle was happening, and then the other one was the one that hung out with the gods. So they've kind of cast them in that role too, where the low lying underclass, or the underworld, and then the sort of gods, the people that are in charge. So there's that element too, which I found really interesting.
Well, it's the ever relevance of myths. You know, myths form you know, thousands of years ago, but they keep being renewed, you know, and so the renewal of the myth.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I think Castor, I can't remember which one, Pollux is the Pollux is the immortal one, and Castor dies in the movie,
right,
to sort of confirm that he's a mortal being. But with Mars in Gemini, could go many different ways, but the first thing that comes to mind, I guess, is Mars being that assertiveness, that will,
right,
and Gemini being that information. So it could be, you know, how do we gather information? What, you know,
gather information, but also Mars, you know, there's the conflict, or there's the fieriness of the competitive of Mars, you know, so you can see arguments really happening very easily, and then not really knowing, you know, and the trickster being constellated, so that who's right and who's wrong, you know, it's going to be, and again, we're going to be 7 months of having to deal with Mars in Gemini. Now, I have Mars in Gemini myself, and one of the classical, you know, traits of Mars is the writer. Mars in Gemini is usually associated with writing. So a lot of
the journalist,
the note keeper, but also the debater. You know, I think it's going to be a very, very interesting time of very powerful debates we've been through a lot of really intense debates, but when Mars was in Taurus, the debate kind of became more earthy, right? It's about being in the ground. But then when Mars was in Aries before that, then we had the Mars Jupiter conjunction, and we had the Mars Neptune conjunction. It was really much more fiery. Now we're going back into an air sign. So the intellectual debate over the next 7 months is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I seem to think there's going to be some interesting news, like powerful, and we'll come into this, but I'll mention it now, just as we're coming into a trine. Mars is now trine Pluto.
Right.
So there seems to be some rebirth of something. So I can imagine some shifts happening through, this Mars, and information and new beginnings, the end of something. So like maybe there's some life-changing news that comes up, or even you just find out something even about yourself that makes a shift.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily have to be out, external, but yeah, something's going to bubble up to the surface, and some information is going to make some changes, in people's lives, I would imagine.
Yeah, it should be fascinating. So this is our first video on Mars in Gemini, and as Mars gets ready to go retrograde, and as we go along, you can follow also the Lunar reports. We'll also be speaking to that. But here, let's look at some charts. Actually, this is the chart of the moment of the ingress of Mars into Gemini, and the constellations that are available. So Alan was talking about Mars being in trine to Pluto, and Mars being in trine with Mercury, and also Mars conjunction Uranus North Node. So both the Uranus trines Mercury, Uranus trines Pluto, Mars, Uranus kind of far apart from a conjunction, but still constellated into this grand trine, which is an air Earth grand trine. A little bit later, Mercury is going to come into Libra, and then that's going to become more of a air grand trine, although Pluto will stay in Earth. So we're talking about that Mars Pluto.
Yeah. So Astrology of Fate, Liz Green. There's a little quote here, and it goes on, but I'm just going to do the short first couple lines here. Very interesting look at Mars in conflict with Pluto. So this assertion of masculine power and virility struggling with the castrating and devouring face of the feminine unconscious is the astrological language represented by Mars in conflict with Pluto. So Pluto being that devouring face of the feminine unconscious, right? And Mars being the masculine power and virility struggling to express itself under that heavy Pluto, devouring feminine. Like you called Pluto the devouring mother before, right, in the past?
Absolutely. I use that phrase to explain the relationship that we all have with Pluto. What I find interesting, and this is going to be really key, so again, Mars will be going all the way to 26 degrees of Gemini, will turn retrograde, and then will turn direct again on at the 8th degree. And so that's a long period, and any planet you have between the 8th degree and the 26th degree of Gemini, but also of mutable signs. So Gemini, Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, you will get 3 exact angle of Mars in this 7 months. So keeping track of that is really important. The factor to consider is that Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and it's very interesting that at the beginning of Mars entering into Gemini, we have a Mars Mercury trine, and Mercury is in the other sign that Mercury rules. So then this is a very mercurial Mars, Pluto, Mercury, the trickster, Mars, the willful. Now, interestingly enough, during Mars being in Gemini for those 7 months, Mercury will turn to retrograde twice. So we'll have 2 Mercury retrograde. And anytime, so consider the movements of Mercury and Mars, and we'll get into the details of that as we go along. So what is it to you? What is a Mercury, Mars, Pluto grand trine feels like?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was talking about, really, just saying about the changing, and the certain information is going to come to light that's going to make us change direction, and maybe using our willpower or developing our willpower to make that change. Yeah, I think that's kind of what that represents. But then you mentioned about we've got here on the screen the Mars, Uranus, Mercury, Pluto, Neptune grand kite. So there's a hat on that too, right?
So here we have Neptune. Neptune is in direct opposition to Mercury, also in trine to Mars and Uranus, sextile, and also to Pluto.
So how would that Neptune being involved in that change that dynamics, do you think?
This particular formation, this grand kite here, we're going to see a lot of it this fall, especially because of what I wrote here, the Uranus, Neptune, Pluto triangle. So Pluto, Neptune, Uranus. And we're going to do a video on that, and we'll be talking about this because this particular triangle is going to be activated. It's just beginning to be activated, and it will be activated all the way till 2029. And especially in 2025, 2026, 2027, it's going to be on for those 3 years, 24/7. It's going to be something that we're going to really learn to discuss, and we'll go into depth more as fall progresses, because we're going to see this configuration. And again, it's engaged in a grand kite. So we have a grand trine and that little hat on it. To me, I sometimes call this the bow and arrow. You got the arrow. So Mercury is the release point. Neptune is the tip of the arrow. So the Neptunian redemption, the Mercurian communication, Mercury Neptune opposition, is the Mercury in Virgo, the medicine communicator, Neptune in Pisces, the quest for redemption, Uranus, the need for revolution and evolution, and Pluto, death and rebirth, and then Mars.
Destiny. Yeah,
that's a lot of energy.
That's pretty cool. Hey, it seems like there's some big shifts coming with that energy in the direction that people are heading.
we did that video, earlier this year of the fourth wave of the Saturn Uranus square. So the Saturn Uranus square is right here. And the Saturn Uranus square at the time of Mars entering into Gemini is in a T square with the sun. And so that Saturn, Uranus, the sun, I think that's very present in all of us. So that's the Mars, Uranus, Sun, Saturn, T square. Again, Mars going to Saturn, to Sun, and Mars going to Saturn as well as Uranus. So that's a lot. That's kind of the same kind of tension, but the sun in the first house, in Leo still. This is how we shine our light into the world. and all of that tension, that Mars, Uranus, accident, tension, and then Saturn, the need for mastery, so that really kind of bodes really interesting for this. We're kind of looking at the chart from a horary perspective, kind of announcing the next 6-7 months as all of this time that Mars will spend in Gemini.
Seems like a time to really, step up, step up and shine your light and communicate, with all this Gemini and Mars, and like really sort of get your message out there, like get your message across, be heard, stood up, be heard, and do the work necessary, right? With the Saturn in there, and
Absolutely, absolutely. The other thing that I saw that was significant is the yod. So a yod is 2, 150 and a 60, and involving the Sun, Neptune, and Pluto. And to me, that's really faded. There's something really important, and I think that that's the same thing with that Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. There's something really deeply important about the times that we're going through, and like John F. Kennedy Jr. He was saying, if there's a hill to stand on, this is it.
Yeah.
And there's a real sense that we're going to be standing on a very important hill that we're going to be defending. And I think that that's our sovereignty,
Right.
We've been talking a lot about sovereignty. Our last full moon, a new moon, Virgo new moon video, we talked a lot about sovereignty. And so
yeah, with that yod there, like, what is it? Neptune, Pluto pointing to the sun. So the sun's the focal point of the yod. So the individual is the focal point, but then the collective, the Neptune and Pluto, is directing it towards the individual. So there's, I don't know, like, what's your take on that? Like taking the energy of Pluto, like destiny, and also like that Neptunian collective, like using that power to sort of empower the individual.
Well, and then the Mars, so then what we have
warrior.
is we have the yod and superimposed over the T-square and superimposed over the grand kite. There's, a real need to assert Mars, our individuality, Sun in the confrontation of collective, Neptune, Pluto, Uranus forces. So and then the Mercury, what's my opinion? What is my piece, that I have to say about this whole thing? There's a great sense of a real opportunity, I feel, in this fall to really become the best persons that we can really become.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. All of that together definitely feels like that, for sure.
Cool. Well, that
cool
was
journey.
Fun. That was just an introduction to this Mars Gemini journey, Gemini and the Mars and Gemini journey. We're going to talk lots more about it, and we're going to keep doing lots of videos, and we got some cool workshops, and we're working to present better and better material. I want to thank you, Alan, for joining me again.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It's nice to have a bit of time to sort of dive into what we were studying and having a look at, and we'll reconvene again in a couple of weeks with what we're doing next.
Certainly. You have that feeling that the sun coming into Virgo, that's gonna change the beat, huh? The sun in Leo, it's been quite self-centered and kind of summer mode, party mode, and then now we got to get to work.
Time to get stuck in. What did I say earlier? I can't remember what I was saying about Virgo time. Oh yeah, I was making spreadsheets and planning planning finance and stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Figuring out my winter. I got the 2 really cool workshop series I'll be offering, and then we're going to try to offer them both in Victoria and in Duncan, but also online too, so you guys can catch up on that. So
Yeah, you can sign up for a newsletter at healerdreamerastrology.com, or is it .com? Or is it .ca? I can't remember.
.ca. .ca. And then also please do subscribe to the channel. That's how we grow. We 391
Ooh.
subscribers now.
Let's go for 400. Come on.
I think I'm gonna have I'm gonna do a video for number 400 as
Yeah.
a celebration
Yeah.
and announce some cool offerings that we'll be doing in the next few months.
Perfect.
Thanks for supporting us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
If you have any questions, comments, please do, and then share, and we'll see you down the road. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
See you.